free consultation.
Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, May 1st. Happy May. I got some great questions this morning asked in a LinkedIn post from Chris Callaghan in Manchester. And my possible answer was too long to try to type on LinkedIn. So I thought, let me make a micro ask me anything because he asked some good questions. So let's take a look at what he said. Chris posted that how do introverts in particular, which can be the majority of our community, navigate the interpersonal road to recognition and reputation when trying to advance their career in a UX leadership role? I'm also keen to uncover the barriers and challenges quiet leaders face, how they overcome them, and what others can do to support them. And I got pulled into this just before I fell asleep last night, so only now am I kind of tuning in. So, what I had said was that technically I'm an introvert, but people see me as very outgoing. And I think what's a little bit sloppy here is the definition of introvert and extrovert. Now, please remember, I don't have a master's degree in psychology. These are all just my opinions, and you're welcome to disagree or have a different opinion. You know, it's opinion city. I'm not an expert on introversion or something like that, but I was asked my opinion. So, no, it's the morning for me, right? Um, so to speak to what Chris said, by definition, I've seen that introvert means someone who kind of recharges their batteries or maybe feels more energized when they are alone or maybe with one other person. Then the extrovert is someone who recharges their batteries or feels better with groups, larger groups of people. So by that definition, I'm actually an introvert in that I've always seen myself as a loner. I don't have groups of friends usually. A lot of my friends are online and scattered around the world. Excuse me, I've got spring allergies. Um, uh, if someone asks me to a party, I normally hate going to parties, especially if I don't know a lot of people. If I do know people, I usually like to talk to them one on one or one on two. Um, Despite being a singer and performer, I don't always like to be the center of attention. Obviously, if I'm speaking at a conference or I'm singing on a stage, I'm going to be the center of attention. But outside of that, I don't do things to make myself the center of attention. I tend to blend in at a party or be a bit of a wallflower. I'm not the loudest person there, despite what some of you might assume. I'm usually the person who finds some way to not go to the party. Um, so that's a little bit about me. And Chris asked more about me personally, which I figured I would answer here. So he said, how are you on the socializing side of things with conversations, larger groups, and relationships with non UXers? Well, I have no problem creating relationships with non UXers as long as we find something in common. Conversations, I'm pretty much always comfortable with, including surprise on the spot ones that go out to the public. Larger groups, I have to admit, is something that for my whole life I've never really loved. But again, that's going to be weird for people who know that I get on stages and sing in front of hundreds of people and get on stages and speak in front of hundreds of people. Um, so there's a bit of a dichotomy there that don't think is completely explained by introversion and extroversion. I thought of it as what about gregarious, but then I thought, no, I am not in a big rush to be in a large group of people. That's that gregarious personality. So the way that I tend to explain it is I say I have a storyteller and performer personality. Um, so, as a storyteller personality or a singer personality, I don't mind getting up to tell a story. I don't mind getting up to sing a song. I don't mind getting up to speak to a crowd, but I really don't want to come to your party. I hope that makes sense. But let's bring this back to Chris's original question, which is, could I be some sort of ambivert? And my general thought is, I think we're trying too hard to label some of these things. I guess I would say that I'm an introvert since I think of myself as a tremendous loner. People ask, like, oh my gosh, how are you doing in the quarantine? honestly 4,000% fine. I have no local friends here anyway, since I moved here over 2 years ago. I think I technically have zero local friends, other than I've started to become friendly with some of my boyfriend's cousins, but we didn't see them very much. I've always been an all of my friends are online person. I used to move every 8 months, so I don't have a lot of local ties. So, like, quarantine for me is almost normal life, other than someone else is doing my food shopping because I don't want to go to a supermarket because I'm a little scared. Um, I didn't know if anyone was chiming in other than Rye. So, what about the question? The more important question is what Chris asks, which is, well, he asks, is my ambiversion natural or something I've consciously developed? For me, this is just natural. It's natural for me to be a loner, and it's natural for me to be a bit of a singer storyteller in select venues, and then kind of go back to wanting to be alone. Like, very often when I speak at a conference, sometimes if the conference interests me, I'll hang around the conference. I'll certainly go to lunch and try to meet people, but very often I go right back to my hotel room and I just love to be alone. So sometimes you see me at a conference and then I kind of disappear, and it could just be a little bit of that introversion. So let's talk about, do introverts face a greater challenge in seeking leadership positions due to the networking and relationship requirements? Um, I really think that's going to depend on the individual, because I think there's a spectrum of what I guess I would call, again, not being a psychologist, discomfort to anxiety related to some of these more social situations, whether that's networking or relationships. I think many introverts are good on the one-on-one, and I think they can be good on the one-on-two. Like, I'm your manager and I've got two people I'm meeting with today. I think they're usually good with that, but again, it's a spectrum. Even that might be pushing it. So the question is, where does introversion then work against you? So I find many introverts tell me, I don't want to be a guest on your podcast. I don't want to speak to the public, or I could never be a conference speaker, or if I tried to write a book, I'd never go out and speak and talk about my book. So I think there are people who are definitely uncomfortable with public speaking. Is it their introversion? Is it something else? It may not matter. So, very often, we expect from our UX leaders some sort of thought leadership, some sort of speaking or presentation, maybe calling. I remember at Macy's, UX leaders would call these all hands meetings of 50, 70 people. And of course, you've got to get up there and talk to those people. I think for some people, there are ways to start to get past public speaking fears. Some people never get past those fears, and that's okay. You adjust what you do for what you can do. What I actually recommend for people with public speaking fears, and I know this is going to sound like dropping someone out of an airplane, um, I actually recommend karaoke. I know that's going to sound like, Deb, come on, are you crazy? That's like all the things I don't want to do wrapped together. It can be, but hear me out. The amazing thing about karaoke is, first of all, you don't have to be a good singer. Plenty of people get up there who are absolutely terrible singers, tone deaf, no rhythm, forgot how the song goes. And everyone claps for them and loves them. You look out there and see a sea of smiling, supportive faces. Nobody gets booed at karaoke. Number two, you can do it with a little bit of alcohol in you if you'd like. You can't do that at work, but you can start in karaoke with a little bit of alcohol in you and then see if you can work your way to no alcohol. So you get to have a little bit of that liquid courage if that works for you. Doesn't for me. I don't drink. I think I have like one drink a year, but I think the last drink I had was last April. I guess I'm due. Um, I like karaoke for public speaking fears because you can totally mess up and you might never see those people again. You can be silly, you can be stupid, you can be theatrical, you can be plain, and everyone's going to clap for you. And if you want to be in a supportive place where you don't have, no one's going to judge your expertise on something or judge if you spoke well or was your information actionable, go out and sing karaoke. Sing something cheesy, sing something silly, and just be silly. And I find that that can help some people. Again, there's certainly fears associated with getting up and singing karaoke. So that's, a little bit of dropping people out of a plane, but I do recommend it because it's a public display, but it's not your typical public speaking, and I hope it gets people comfortable messing up, making mistakes, being silly in front of a room full of strangers. And you can think about that and go, okay, I can see how that would start to maybe hopefully shift people's comfort zones. But there are things I've tried to do to shift my comfort zones. I tried them a few times. My comfort zone didn't shift. And I just walked away and I said, okay, I accept about myself that that is uncomfortable for me and something I'm not going to do or something I'm not going to be good at. So, are UX leaders held back if they're more introverted? I can think of a few UX leaders I've had who I think were more introverted. They didn't really like to make the big speeches at meetings. They would do a small introduction and pass it to someone else. You can always do that. There's always someone on your team who would love to talk in that meeting. Um, could be me, could be someone else. I think UX leaders absolutely can be introverts, and I think there are ways around that. Just have more one on ones, one on twos. Any relationship and networking things. When I'm at a networking event, I try to not think of it as, oh no, I have to get to know everybody in this room, or oh no, I'm on display to everybody in this room. I think about it as opportunities to meet ones and twos of people because that's what I enjoy more. And I'll just look for people who seem friendly or interesting and walk over and introduce myself or something like that. So, you don't have to turn it into, oh, I'm at this networking thing and there's 10 people around me. You would think that's me from the way that I'm out there speaking, but it's rarely. It's rarely. You'll usually find me talking to one person, maybe two. And about weird stuff. I went when I spoke at the Tech Bash conference in Pocono Mountains in October. I went to one of their like happy hours or something. Which I usually don't go to, but I was like, just do it, just see who you meet. And ended up sitting at a little table for two. A guy sat down with me, and somehow we ended up finding out that we liked the same Dutch symphonic goth metal band. And that was a fun conversation. And we didn't necessarily stay in touch or stay friends, but it was like a really nice connection moment to be at this conference that's not really on my topic, it's an engineering conference. Um, and make a connection with someone, and to me that's a good introvert moment, and we can do that, and I think we have to remind ourselves that we can do that, and that some of these larger events are just opportunities to have those individual moments and connections. So do I think introverts face a greater challenge in leadership positions? I think it really just depends on aspects of personality. If you have a little bit of performance in you, I think people will draw upon that. I'm thinking of a manager I had who I think was fairly shy and more introverted, but he played in a band, and I think he played guitar. So he wasn't the singer, but he was a guy who has to get on stage and play some guitar. And you can be slightly introverted about playing guitar, or you can ham it up for the audience. And so I think if you have any of that performer, musician, artist in you, it's something you can draw upon. I think if you like making connections with people, it's something you can draw upon. If you really hate making connections with people, if you have an anxiety disorder or a social anxiety disorder, then a lot of what I'm saying is really not going to make a lot of sense. But if you're elsewhere on the spectrum of discomfort with these things, I think there's ways to try to see if you can shift. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. But I don't think it should hold leaders back, because I don't expect my UX leader to make a speech in front of 1,000 people. And if my UX manager or leader never speaks at a conference, I'm okay with that. If they do a great job managing and leading me, I think that's good enough. Let's see what else people were saying in this topic. I think that's mostly what people were saying in the topic, and I know that's the long version, but you could see why I didn't want to type this on LinkedIn. But that's my thoughts. Let's go back to Chris's original question. What are the barriers and challenges quiet leaders face? How do they overcome them, and what others can do to support them? I would think that one of the main challenges would be that sometimes the louder leader gets more attention or activity or meetings or something than the quiet leader. And if the louder leader is a jerk or is going in the wrong direction with a project or something like that, they might still get love and appreciation and attention when maybe they don't fully deserve it. So I think there is a downside for people who, if they're going to be that shy or that introverted. I also think about one of my favorite bosses, and I think about a promotion he didn't get. And I don't know why he didn't get it. I genuinely don't know why he didn't get it. I don't know if the company just wanted to bring in someone fresh, or if there was something about his more shy personality that they didn't like. But he was hands down one of the best bosses I ever had. If the company had asked me, which I think they should have asked all of the people who reported to this guy, do you think he would do a great job at the next level? Do you think that's a good fit for him? I can't think of anybody who reported to him who would have said no. Sorry, these spring allergies are killing me. Um, so I think companies should not just interview outside people, but interview the people who deal most with these managers and learn more about them, because sometimes you just don't know much about the quiet manager. They're more introverted, or they take a little bit longer to get to know. Takes a little longer to stumble on things you have in common with them, where you find that connection. So I think companies can do more to support the quieter introverted manager. They can not just listen to the loudest voice at the meeting. They can specifically call on that manager in a meeting and say, okay, we heard from so and so in product, but you from UX, what are some of your thoughts on that? If you've worked your way up to manager, you're probably not going to say, "Oh, I'd rather not talk about it here." You're going to say a few things, and so I think that we can also help those managers, reminding to, and same thing for our workers who are more shy, who are more introverted, unless they've expressed that they have a specific anxiety about speaking in front of others or being called on in a meeting. I do like to call on people who are sometimes a little bit more quiet and give them the opportunity to use their voice and see if that's comfortable for them, or try it out. So let's call on these people. Especially in medium to larger size meetings, where they might not be jumping in with some of their thoughts, and someone who's louder or more outgoing may be dominating the meeting accidentally or on purpose. So that's some of my thoughts on introversion and extroversion. Oh, we've got a question. R for everything. What about an introvert as a UX researcher? So I've been asked that before, though I was asked it privately. And my answer to that is it depends again on how you define introversion and what your level is. If you're comfortable in that one on one, then you can do lots of UX research. If you're comfortable with that small group, if you're doing focus group anthropology, ethnographic stuff, then you can do that. So I think that it really depends on where you are in the spectrum of comfort with people. I spoke to someone at one point who said they had a lot of social anxiety disorder, and they were sometimes uncomfortable or afraid to meet new people or talk to new people, or it really took them a long time to warm up to people. I had suggested to that person that UX research might not be the number one role that I would suggest for them, only because they had originally expressed to me that they felt a level of anxiety in speaking to someone new to them. So it really depends on where you are along those lines. So I think an introvert absolutely can be a great researcher. Excuse me, these spring allergies are killing me. And I'm allergic. I can't take antihistamines. So those of you who are like, why isn't Deb taking stuff? Deb can't take stuff. I don't do antihistamines. I don't do a lot of medications in general, but that's a podcast for another time. Um, I think it can work, but it's about how much you can make it work. And I always hope that if a researcher finds that they have some sort of limitation somewhere, or boundary, because boundary is not necessarily limitation, it could be a healthy boundary, that maybe sometimes they find a research partner who has a slightly different personality type and say, you know what? we're two researchers in the same department. Let's break things up this way. I'm really great with these one-on-one interviews. You're really great in more of these group settings, in some of these listening labs, or some of the presentations. What if we split it up like this? And hopefully a manager would support that. So my thought is there's always a solution for everything. Absolutely everything. It's just whether or not our managers and leadership are gonna let us do it. There's been a solution for everything for decades. We could have been working from home since I had cable internet in the 90s. We could have been working from home for a very long time. It was just, will someone let us do this? So I think that if you have anxiety related to people, if you have fears or concerns related to speaking to people, you can still be a researcher, but you just might be modifying some of the tasks that you do and seeing if you can pull in a partner at the same company who you can kind of share things with given what each other's strengths are. I think it's Delta CX core principle number 4 or 5. Play to strengths. If your strength isn't public speaking, I'm not going to make you do public speaking. If your strength isn't working in groups, I'm going to put you in groups a little bit, but a little bit less than I might put someone else in. So I think we have to play to each other's strengths, have empathy, of course, for what people's experiences and preferences are, and see where we can challenge people a little bit if they're okay with being challenged, because we know some people aren't, and otherwise play to people's strengths. So thanks for the question. So this was a random, accidental, early morning, runny nose, excuse me, spring allergies, ask me anything. Good morning, 8:30 in the morning here in Italy. But hope this helps somebody in some way. I want to support everybody, no matter what their personality type is, and I know I'm the weirdo because I really see myself as a loner. But there's probably none of you who think, Deb, she's probably a loner. In real life, I am. So, but again, I have a singing, performing, storytelling personality. Ask me to tell a story, and I do enjoy that. Whether it's to a camera, because I can't see you guys, or it's to an audience, and sometimes I can't see them either because the lights are down. That's my personality, and yours is going to be unique too. You're going to have your own strengths too, and it's how do we figure out what those are and play to them and shine lights on them, and where you feel like you don't have strengths, challenge yourself a little bit, and if it doesn't work, thank yourself for trying. So thanks for joining my impromptu long answer Ask Me Anything for introversion and UX workers and managers and leaders, and I hope this has helped somebody with something. See y'all later. Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.